Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided.
This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy and other Eagan community television programming is supported by Thomson Reuters, makers of Westlawn Next and based in Eagan. Through Westlawn Next and other innovative online services, Thomson Reuters is the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And by U.S. Federal Credit Union, the member-owned financial institution offering service, value, and experience you can trust to the greater Twin Cities community.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns, and to say that Papa John Kolstad is a folk musician and an activist really is not doing him justice. He is a legend in this area. I don't know how you are both a musician and somebody who has a degree in advanced physics. I don't know how you work that out. I don't know how you've gotten involved in so many social issues for decades, and yet you've made 8 or 9 albums. You're on a Grammy-nominated album. As I said, you're a legend in your own time, and it's a pleasure to have you here, John.
Well, it's great to be here. One little correction, I don't have an advanced degree in physics. I studied physics for 4 years and then switched to art and started playing music late in my career. But that was my first career choice. I loved physics and I loved working with it, and atomic physics was my particular area of interest. But then during the Vietnam confusion, all of that, I decided that being an artist was, I'd probably do less harm to anybody doing that. And I was playing music all that time. So, but how I got all those things done is that, you know, you just keep doing things. And a neighbor of mine some years ago had said to me that I was running for an endorsement for an office, and she came to me and said, "I support you because you're a doer." And I thought that was an interesting description.
Well, that is, especially in today's political really scene, to have a doer and somebody with a conscience, even more than that, which I know you have, is really a good testament to you.
And I love music, particularly traditional music, now called Americana, and many call it Americana. The early blues, folk music, early jazz, and it's not that I don't like the more modern kind, but this was the period that I had listened to, and there was something becoming about that intrigued me, and I wanted to play that music. I love the music made by these people.
And it really is the kind of music that really appeals to me and always has.
Yeah, there's just something about it, and of course this was just before and during the Depression when a lot of this was created, and I think that there was a real consciousness. Not that I was doing it because I could see similarities to our current period, which it's developed into, but I wanted to play that music, and you know, you just keep working at it. You hear more music, you learn from other musicians, and you just grow as a musician. I toured for a while. We made some records, and then I went and studied music in Boston at Berkeley, and I graduated there in '77. And then toured for a while. And I wanted to learn how you could write arrangements, how you could write film scores if need be, or a jingle, or arrangements for other musicians to come, so I wouldn't have to spend hours trying to teach everybody how to do it.
It's that curiosity that you have and have shown that really has made you a legend.
I think that that's really the key. If people ask, well, how do you know about so many things? Well, they're all around you, especially now with the internet, it's so available, but there also were publications that would cover it, and there were great writers on just about every topic you can imagine. So if you were interested in something, you could find out about it. You could go to the university or to a college or university or to a tech school somewhere and find an expert and then learn from them the details of it. So alternate energy was something I had been interested in since I worked on a farm when I was a teenager. and then later became interested in the whole area of energy and transportation. I've always believed in electric cars. I always thought we could run cars on alcohol, make it on the farm, and make the farmers rich. And I always called it the trickle-up theory, that if the farmers were rich and had lots of money to spend, then the entire community around those farm areas would be well-to-do, because the farmers would spend a lot of money and everybody would, prosper.
The logic is right there. Randy Travis tried to run something on alcohol the other night and didn't end up too well.
He was putting it in the wrong engine.
Yes,
I think.
Yes, as I found him. I did a whole bit on him this morning when I did early morning radio, paraphrasing some of his best-known songs against the situation, and he found himself drunk and naked on the highway. Which is a shame for...
in the music world, we call that embarrassing.
Embarrassing. Well, you've done nothing to embarrass yourself. You also are the founder of Mill City Music, which is well known here in the Twin Cities area and elsewhere.
We sell to 49 states and 2 countries, although it's downsized a great deal with the economy, with the shrinking economy. But I've run that for 30 years.
And as such, you're a small business owner.
Yeah, exactly.
And as a small business owner, you realize the problems that we have faced and continue to face in the healthcare industry.
Right. Well, also I was on the Lake Street Council for a number of years, and on the Lake Street Council, I learned how important small business was. I always knew it was important, but we had people come in who did presentations of studies with information. So I learned that small business actually is the biggest business in America. Currently, the SBA, Small Business Administration, shows that over 50% of employment is with small business. 90% of the new jobs created in Minnesota by the last study by the House Research Service was with small business. So that small business is actually big business.
And when small business runs, the economy runs.
Exactly.
When small business runs, it's hiring people, and it's pushing the economy forward, and that's really, really what we have to restore to this economy today and to this country today. Of course, sending jobs overseas is a way to punish small business and big business as well.
Right.
So
well, small business is much more than just doing things for the economy, because what they are is they're always a part of their community. So if somebody has a small business that is directed towards the community that they're in, whether it be retail or I was in wholesale, so I was selling to other stores, and also we manufactured records. We had a record label subsidiary, and which we did sell nationally and internationally. But if you're a small business and you're key to the community, you're not going to move to another country. You're not going to move your business out. So any money invested in that small business stays in that community. And there's some recent stats that if you and I go and buy from a local independent store, whatever kind it is, in the area, 58% more of that money you spend stays in the community than if you buy it from some chain place from, say, Arkansas. It buys everything from China. So it's very important. So we can really do something about our own economy by the way that we spend our money. And we all have to spend money on our rent and our food and our clothing and all those kind of things. And if you keep in mind to spend whenever you can with your local independent businesses, it makes a big difference to the betterment of the local communities.
One of my pet peeves is the fact that people can look on the internet, see something cheaper, or they go into their store, see something they want, then go on the internet, see it cheaper, order it on the internet, and not have to pay sales tax for it. And one of the things I've said to people running for the legislature, and which I just said to Jim Carlson recently, is one of the first bills you have to put forward is to charge sales tax for internet purchases. Correct. Because what is punished there is the small business and the community business by having to compete with a mega corporation, maybe a continent away, if not someplace else, and they're making money and not paying taxes on it. The small business is entitled to at least be able to compete with them.
That's right. I was as a founder, and for many years I was a board member of the the Metro Independent Business Alliance here in the Twin Cities area. exclusively small independent businesses that were members of this. And this has been one of our goals for a long time, and we're really making progress on that. This is one of those bipartisan issues that business people on both sides of the political spectrum, or on many sides of the political spectrum, there really, I think, are more than two sides. Constituents are telling the legislators that this is something we need because just for fairness, because having some people paying tax and some people not paying tax. You know, we were talking about Thom Hartmann before the show, and one of the things Thom Hartmann talks about on his radio show is that the Boston Tea Party wasn't really about taxation without representation, really. It was because the East India Tea Company was getting a special deal from the King of England, who he didn't have to pay the tax on tea, where all the other people, the other businesses that were importing tea, all had to pay a big tax on the tea. So it was some people get taxed and some people don't get taxed. That's unfair, and the government is not supposed to be picking winners and losers and favoring some people and harming others. So this is something, I think that this is going to pass. There's really a great deal of interest in
I
it.
certainly hope so, and I hope also that there's hope that we can level the tax structure and make it more equitable for everybody, rather than have a moneyed few who get away with paying virtually nothing, or certainly much less than the rest of us pay.
Right.
And not only is that unfair, but it's also damaging to the economy. And one of the things you found as you were running a small business is that healthcare costs were prohibitive and out of sight. And you got very involved in healthcare. I believe in single payer. I know that you do also. So let's talk a little bit about what your findings are in terms of single payer as against the rest of the world.
I started my business in 1980, and I'd always provided health care. I paid for all the health care for my employees. It was too much. It was too much hassle to break down. Well, you pay this much, and I'll pay this much. It was just simpler for us. We just provided this for all our employees, and it was not only the cost of the health care. Originally, it was not so bad, but it kept going up and up and up. 10 to 15% every year when inflation was 2 to 3%. It was obvious this is a sustainable program, that eventually it's going to bankrupt everybody. It's going to take all their money. So I started looking into this, and not only did I find out it was costing me a lot of money, but I had to administer that plan, and I was legally responsible. So if I made some mistake, whether it was intentional or not, or malicious or not, I was responsible for what the coverage of my employee, because I made some kind of mistake. But I tried to read through the policy that I had from the insurance company, health insurance company, and I did contracts for my company. I did record contracts and rental contracts and a number of other kind of agreements. So I dealt with contracts all the time, and I was actually helped other people write contracts. I had lawyers that contacted me, so I had some expertise there. And I tried to read through the healthcare plan. It was incomprehensible. So I'm paying a lot of money for a plan, for a program, a product. I have no idea what it is. And you don't know until you get sick or injured or something happens. Then you call up and say, what do I pay? What do you pay? What do we do? And that's not the time you want to be looking into that kind of thing. You
also don't want a company, at least in my feeling, a for-profit company that's taking a third or maybe a little bit less than a third of the premiums and putting them into administrative costs, putting them into executive salaries, putting them into bonuses, putting them into golden parachutes, all the things that are not going to healthcare. Now, fortunately, we had Al Franken, who added a bill on that amazingly passed the legislature this year, which says that they can only, 15%?
15%.
15% take out for administrative costs. The rest has to go into patient care.
Right.
A marvelous, marvelous addition from one of the newest senators, and our senator, by the way.
What I want to find out is whether there's going to be any auditing, because the state of Minnesota has a similar provision and has for years. And I looked, was in my policy. I looked it up. It was 18% was state law, that they could only have 18% for overhead. And the problem was that they've never been audited. So what they say is overhead and what they say is healthcare, there's no way of knowing because they say it's privileged information. So
Dave Feinwax was in here not too long ago.
He knows
He's
about
been here a
this.
couple of times. And it cost him his job after 30 years because he said, hey, who's watching the chicken coop?
That's right. Yeah, David, he's great. He's doing great work. So anyway, I found out that this was not good, this system, and it was not something that could be sustained as a business person. And as for not just for me, but for all small business and even big business. GM almost went under, and a lot of it was the healthcare costs that they were paying. And so I started doing some research. I did some study circles. I started reading information, and I found out that the entire rest of the industrialized world, not all of it then, but most of it then, now all of it, has already found a solution to that. They pay between 1.5% and 2% overhead. Taiwan has like 1.7. Canada has 1.6 now, 1.6% compared to the United States. The overhead for insurance industry, the complete overhead cost about 35%, give or take a couple of percentage points in where you're looking.
Which is shocking.
It is shocking. It's a waste of money.
And I love the fact that Mitt Romney was in Israel and then came back and talked about how their economy is really prospering. And one of the things they have is single payer.
Right.
And the single payer is taken right out of the salary of everybody when they receive their salary. It's a fact of life there. Nobody notices it, nobody feels it, but they have one of the best healthcare systems in the world.
Yeah, France is terrific.
France is another one, yes.
And I think they have like a 1.5 to 1.7% overhead. And I've talked to a number of people. My daughter was over there a couple of years ago and got an infection and was in great pain and difficulty, and went to the concierge of the hotel, and she didn't know what to do, and we're thousands of miles away, and what can we do? It's as a parent, that's a painful thing to go through. And they went to the concierge and they said, oh, well, there's a doctor down the street. So they called the doctor, and he says, come right over. So she went over, and he said, oh, okay, I know what it is, and here's an antibiotic, and this will take care of it, but I'll keep in touch with you. And I think it cost her $25, and she wasn't even a resident of France. And I think everybody else that would go to the doctor doesn't even get a bill. It's just paid for directly.
Well, they're paying it out of their salary so that they
out of taxes. I think it'd be
right.
And a lot of people say, well, we don't want quote, we don't want government running our health care. Well, first of all, who is the government? Are we the government, or is it some alien from outer space that's running our government, or an oligarchy maybe of who knows who? It's somebody else, or is it us? And
don't
I
you
think it's
remember
us.
those people in 2010 saying, "Don't let government get its hands on my Social Security"?
Right.
I mean, talk about really ignorance of the facts.
I think that I kind of feel sorry for those people, because I think that they're probably good, wholesome people that have been, I think, misled by very skillful manipulators. I don't know who these people are, but I think that's somebody told them that. They didn't come up with that. They didn't sit down and read a book somewhere and then come up with that. I mean,
No, they watch Fox News and they get really brainwashed, and
Right.
it's really a shame.
Now, as a business person, I've got a real simple way of approaching this. Is that right now what we do is we pay our money into an insurance company, and then they take about 65% of it actually goes to provide for the services that we really want to have when we need them, and not everybody is covered. It used to be about 57 million not covered, and right now I don't know where the stats are. I haven't seen anything recently. But even the new coverage under the new bill is not everybody's going to be covered by that. So there's still going to be a lack of coverage. So instead of giving our money to this insurance company and have them spend 35% of it on something else, if we took our money, we put it into our fund, and we administer it through our own public officials, or a nonprofit could run it. A very good nonprofit, highly regulated, make sure that it's audited on a regular basis, that they're not wasting money, that they're not colluding with somebody to do fraud or anything. Spend the money efficiently, and have one place where people submit a bill. Any doctor in the state sees a patient, they send a bill to one place. It's very simple. It's very efficient. The doctor gets paid quickly, and we would have like a 1.7% overhead, 2%.
And everybody would be covered.
Everybody would be covered. And currently, we have 57 million people in this country that don't have health care. That harms business. That harms the economy.
And it drives up the cost for everybody else because those people go to the emergency room
That's right.
where they get charged much, much more, and that cost is spread out over everybody else's premiums.
Right.
So it makes no sense at all.
So the sensible thing is what the rest of the world has already done. And I told you before the show that I had met this Republican man from, because I've always been on the Democratic side of the political spectrum. And I met this man from Pennsylvania. He was a 17-year legislator in Pennsylvania named David Stile. And he came here and did a presentation with our business organization about why he, as a business person, as a Republican, supports universal single-payer health care, or Medicare for all. And what was really fun to hear him and meet him, I had lunch with him and we had a great chat, a really, really great guy. And he made almost every single argument that I make when I do presentations. So it was very interesting that two business people, one the Democratic side, one the Republican side, make exactly the same arguments. He made one point that I don't make, and I do make now. And he in his beginning, he would say, what is the purpose of government? Why do we have government? Obviously, we have a lot of it at all levels. We have a lot of government. So why do we have government? There's got to be a reason for it. And his answer is, we need government to do for us what we can't do for ourselves. I thought that was a brilliant, succinct way of saying
Which is police, fire, health care, I think
defense,
education,
clean
defense,
water,
right?
Clean food, healthy food, the drugs administration to make sure the
Absolutely.
drugs are safe and proper, and there are other things, the highway department, and so on. So it does things for us that we can't do, and so the government can do this for us, and it's actually the best way to do it, and it's the simplest way.
It would be if we could get through the lobbyists and get through the legislators who are getting tremendous contributions, mostly to perpetuate themselves.
Right.
But I know you have one other interest, and it's a very fascinating area in terms of global warming. And while we have 5 minutes left, let's talk to some of your thoughts on global warming.
In the transition to that, the talking about campaign finance is that we really need to publicly finance our campaigns.
Absolutely, the same as the British do.
Because the current system costs us too much. It's a practical thing because people who have vested interests are getting our legislators to do what they want, and it's not what we need.
And with Citizens United, unnamed people and unnamed corporations can really, really skew the system in their favor.
Unknown
Or nations, true.
Unknown nations could be donating large money to our candidates for president and other offices, and we have no way of knowing what that is. So that about global warming, I think that there are a number of solutions that are immediately available. There's the technology has been there, and some of it for a long time. And Germany has shown that this can be done, and they've already done it. They've created the equivalent of 5 nuke plants of electric power using solar voltaic. They did it with a federally government subsidized program where they're generating, they have, I think, 3 million buildings, mostly commercial buildings, that are all generating power with solar voltaic on their roofs. So it shows that this can be done, and the person that advised them is an American named Jeremy Rivkin. So it's R-I-V-K-I-N, Jeremy Rivkin. Look him up on the internet. He's a brilliant fellow, and he has done tremendous things. So he was being interviewed by a guy named Adam Klugman. His father is an actor, famous actor. And
Jack Klugman.
Jack Klugman's son.
Right.
And Adam is really a progressive Democrat. Well, he was. He's a little unhappy with what the Democrats are right now. But he's still the same person he always was, and he's got a great radio show on the East Coast. And so he was asking Jeremy Rivkin, well, why don't we do that in the United States? And he said, well, the coal companies and the power companies and the gas oil companies and all the vested interests won't let this happen. And he said, well, don't they have coal companies and gas companies and electric companies and all that in Germany? He said, oh, yeah. He said, well, what's the difference? He said, oh, in Germany they have publicly financed campaigns, and here the big power and money interests are able to do that. So I think that shows one of the first steps we have to take is that we have to fund these elections because they're our elections. It's our health care. We should fund our health care directly. We don't need any other middle person in the way to do that. I mean, I'm a business person, and I function as a middleman, but I provided a service that really couldn't be provided some other way. This is a service that can be provided easily and really properly. This is actually a great role for government to perform, is to provide health care.
And would be the ethical and moral thing to do as well.
And then we fund our own campaigns, so that our candidates actually represent the people and go to office to do what's good for the nation, good for the community. I like to call it the Commonwealth, which Tom Hartman talks about also. I like the concept of the Commonwealth. It's like, what is good for all of us, not just for a few, and let's all prosper, and not that everybody's going to be prospering equally. I'm not saying everybody should make the same wage, should make the same amount of money. People are still going to, some are going to want to do things and are going to make more money doing it. Some people are going to have a less ambition to do that.
There will be innovators who will create and will be rewarded for creating. But you talk about a commonwealth. There's a commonwealth called Massachusetts in this country, which has single payer, in effect, health care created by somebody by the name of Mitt Romney. And
he's doing something these days.
One of his people the other day mentioned it, and they practically pilloried the poor woman. It's probably the one accomplishment that he has in his entire life, other than walking out of a hardware store and with hardware things, whatever that is. But his one accomplishment, where he was very destructive in that state, but he accomplished this, and he can't even mention it in today's political atmosphere because of the party that he's running for.
It's got to change, because this is destroying, I think it's destroying our country. I'm almost 70 years old. I've been watching what's going on in our community, and I've always felt that I can't just complain about it. I have to be involved, which you talked about in my introduction, that I've always been involved. And I think it's my responsibility to do that. I think it's everybody's responsibility to be involved and to watch what's going on, find out where the money is going.
Get out there and vote. Get out and be registered.
Work for
be
candidates.
A voice in your community. Work for candidates. Take charge of your life, and take charge of your area, and take charge of your country.
It's all our responsibility if we really are a commonwealth. Almost all the 13 colonies we're called commonwealths. Pennsylvania's a commonwealth.
Right.
I don't think
it still is. I think there are 3 commonwealths left, and the rest are states.
Yeah, maybe Connecticut and I think Pennsylvania.
That's Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
that's the third one.
I thought it would be fun sometime for me to get together with this David Stile, this Republican businessman, and his reasons are all practical for going to universal health care.
Bring him here.
As a business person.
We'll do an hour with the two of you. We've been talking with Papa John Kolstad, who is much more than a musician, an activist, and a pleasure. You got to come back, because we have more to talk about, and we're already out of time.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.